Okay. Wonderful. I think we're ready to go, folks. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone, to episode 171 of Poets in Pajamas. I am your host for this evening, Aslan, brought to you by Sundress Publications. My co-coordinator, Gardner Dorton, will be here very shortly. He's running just a little bit late, but I'll kick us off right now with a couple of notes. This is currently being live streamed to Facebook and recorded so that we can have a good little archive going. If you would ever like to watch these recordings later on, they'll be on Facebook and YouTube very shortly after us concluding tonight's reading. We have two absolutely wonderful poets. I'm so excited to welcome them in today, Kerry Trautman and Akpa Arinzechukwu. We'll start with Kerry's reading. But before we do that, if you have any accessibility concerns to where you would like a copy of the poems that will be read tonight for you to follow along, you can always email us at poetsinpajamas@gmail.com for that. And also, during the reading, if you hear any lines that just really resonate with you, throw it in the chat. We love to highlight little phrases or moments in poems that we love, so that others can remember them along the way. It kind of builds this little, how should I say, it's like a little Zoom lineage of everything that has happened in the reading that we loved. So go ahead and shout things out that you love. Without any further ado, I think we'll get started with our first reader, that being Kerry Trautman, who is a lifelong Ohioan whose work has been widely published in literary journals and anthologies. She co-founded ToledoPoet.com and the Toledo Poetry Museum page on Facebook, both of which promote Northwest Ohio poetry events. In 2019, her one-act play, Mass, was a winner of the Toledo Repertoire Theater's Toledo Voices competition. She has served as judge or workshop leader for the Northwest region of Ohio's Poetry Out Loud competition annually since 2016. Her books are Things That Come in Boxes from Kingcraft Press, To Have Hoped, Finishing Line Press, Artifacts, Night Ballet Press, To Be Nonchalantly Alive, Kelsey Books, Maryland Self-Portrait Oil on Canvas from Gutter Snob Books, Unknowable Things Roadside Press, and Irregulars from Stanchion Books. Kerry, take it away.
Hi there. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to be reading from 4 of my books tonight. No particular theme, just kind of a selection of things. So first, from To Have Hoped. This is a poem, a summertime poem. It's been really, really hot here. So this is called Dead End Street. I plucked the Queen Anne's lace apart, its tiny replicas of itself, lining them along the sidewalk cracks, hot, scorched in July drought, the vacant lots ruffled with the queens and chicory and clover, the delicate hateds, the skid row lovelies, the thickets of white and lilac nasties that smell only of grassy seed and heat, only faintly sweet if you crush your face against them and inhale what the fleas and katydids do. The persevering when only grubs and beetles want you. The duplication of yourself decades over in echoes and echoes. This book, Artifacts, has a lot of poems that begin with the phrase archaeological survey of. So this is archaeological survey of a 16-year-old boy. A descendant not of Adam, my son was born with a fossil lodged in his throat. That familiar voice of my brother, my father's brother, and the tracheal clench of my grandfather who worked decades managing a concrete ready-mix crew. I hear him instructing his men in tensile strength. In my son's hardening of his own joy, in his reluctant twitch of a smirk in place of liquid laughter, I see all these past reticent men with their histories of restraint, of refusal to be vulnerable for their women, children, their fear of opening mouthy grins and arms wide for the flesh of the world bounding towards them in bright beams. These breakwall men preventing waves from enveloping shores. These concrete men resisting flex and torsion. These boulder men refusing to be quarried. These would-be winged men sealing themselves in amber. This next poem is an ekphrastic piece from a painting by a local painter named Randy Bennett. And it has some footnotes that I'm going to read to you. You won't remember them necessarily, but if you're familiar with patron saints in the Catholic faith or other Christian faith, so there are various patron saints mixed in here. So Saint Apollonia is the patron saint of dentists. Saint Thomas Aquinas is the patron saint of students. Saint Luke the Evangelical is the patron saint of surgeons and artists. Saint Gabriel Possenti is the patron saint of gun owners. Saint Dymphna, the patron saint of mental illness, and Saint Raphael, the patron saint of doctors and pharmacists. So this is called Wisdom. Saint Apollonia, my daughter's jaw needs your wisdom this morning. 4 teeth jerked away as crows cawed outside the oral surgeon's window. Things will be taken from her over and over again. There aren't feathers enough to embellish this knowledge. Saint Thomas Aquinas, our school children need your robes to shield them at their desks. Buzzards soar above their jungle gyms, sniffing for gunpowder. There are always talons poised to uproot tender feet from soil. Saint Luke the Evangelical, take Apollonia's hand, deflect the light so my girl cannot walk towards it. Assure her there is nothing there to see, that her regular Friday is worth finishing. My daughter's physics teacher drew diagrams of birds' wings and loft, of levers and wedges, and the arcs of projectiles. Saint Gabriel Possenti, lower any barrels raised toward living targets. Intercede between flesh and lead. Alter trajectories. Gray-black shadows hover circles over calculus class and biology and a Tuesday morning ACT administration. Second grade teachers are skilled at pulling baby teeth. Older, we dream our teeth fall out, wake to dried drool on our cheek, licking the rows to check they're all accounted for. Saint Dymphna, relax troubled psyches, numb triggers and their fingers. My girl will rest the weekend away with pain pills, ice cream, and TV. Saint Raphael, you are overwhelmed. Beg the aid of blue jays and goldfinches like Sleeping Beauty might. Make prisms from what pinpoints of light you find in our dark. So this next one is in 7 little parts. The title is Of Oils, and each of the 7 little poems kind of talks about a different type of oil. Of oils. 1. Mouse girl in the back of the classroom whose hairs conglomerated in striations, enunciating the tufts' growth patterns, like a field of soil freshly tilled and inoculated with rows of unseen seeds. 2. Olives were plucked and pressed to meld my pan full of chopped onion and garlic, translucening their cellulose with celery, carrot in golden sluice, as if the olives, who could not avoid their own demise, will accomplice fellow vegetables' slow sweat. 3. Iridescent swirls floating on parking lot puddles. Retired from the work of slicking cars' gears and ball bearings, let them now drift and glimmer momentarily, sinking back into black asphalt nooks when the sun completes its work of evaporation. 4. My fingertips smell of tangerine peels, the citrus oils dense as chrism, blessing the nail beds with winter sweetness. Perhaps the wise men, instead of myrrh, could have bestowed upon the babe an arc of oranges. 5. I rub mentholated ointment on my son's chest, like the hull of a ship in a bottle. The slickness smells blue as peaks of January sky between swells of snow cloud. The iced whiskey vapor will expand alveoli, smooth mucosa, bring sleep. It will. 6. We revive February feet with smeared petroleum jelly at bedtime and sheaths of serious wool socks. The petrolatum nose to be sucked by crusted whorls, ooze into crevasses the way snow melt seeks the earth's core. 7. It is both miracle and sin, the cinnamon and butter and frivolous veins throughout the bread loaf, preventing the dough from adhering to itself, refusing to be absorbed into the dough, maintaining sweet selfness like the best kind of wife. That's that little weird one. So I write about fires quite often. So this one is called Soot. When the demo crew went to work on the burnt out building, the scent of soot was released upon Main Street like spores, reminding drivers-by of a century of bones between brick walls. The soot held the sweat of the pawn shop owner waking, haunted by stories in his storefront window. The fur of 12 cats fed that one last time by the body of the old lady herself. The spit of a black couple evicted for walking too hard on their own damn floors. The cigarette smoke, burnt toast, smack grit, Aquanet, Pine Sol, Love's Baby Soft, bong smoke, bacon grease. Trucks smashed and rumbled heaps into other trucks that rumbled it all away to where, I don't know, but soot lingers there, awaiting scrubbing and a second chance at holding things together. So last, I'm going to turn to my most recent poetry book. This one's called Drops. He closed the screen door, stepped into a rain that smells like worms. I could only think I wanted those drops to drizzle from my scalp to eyebrows. There's these unexpected lumps in you, he said through the screen, like the ridges and pits in the bottom of hot tubs. Referring maybe to my need to gulp water if it tastes good, very cold, gulp until I gasp for my next breath, letting my blouse get dribbled, even if it's silk, which it never was. Through the screen door, I said, I'm just thirsty. Translations from the English into admissions of everyday fears. When she says, see you later, what she means is, sometimes the breeze tries to fray my muscles. When she says, I'm tired today, what she means is to cut into an underripe cantaloupe is a failure. When she says, pick up some milk on the way home, will you? What she means is, my shoes feel like they're from my childhood closet. When she says the mail is late, what she means is, if only baby bunnies never had to fear dogs. When she says, hold me, what she means is, or else I might dissipate like smoke. When she says, look, a heron, what she means is, someday everyone will leave. This is my last poem. This is another ekphrastic one. This is based on a Mark Rothko piece that's in the Toledo Museum of Art. So not seeing the painting, you know what a Rothko looks like, the large planes of color. So you can kind of picture that. This is called Withholding. Rothko's planes of layered pigments barely press toward each other, like teenaged thighs inadvertently but controlledly aligning in football bleachers. Like china cabinet wine glasses hovering, not clinking together at footsteps. My son taps his phone. My onions simmer on the stovetop. I don't ask if he's ever kissed a girl or boy. I can't remember for him the first time he gasped and screamed in sterile hospital air. I can't press his chest against another to ignite sparks. Some pigments were never intended to blend or would bleed so fully they would transform. He thinks he knows the risk of transformation. It's as if Rothko knew I could never say everything, knew that my son would never boil over, that I can't remember for him the moment he decided to lean away, and I can't instead unsteady his balance into me. Sometimes two beings are bridged only by air carrying the scent of browning butter. Some bodies coexist, appreciating, simmering from a safe distance, like a dare. That's all for me, everybody. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, Kerry, thank you so much for that. Um, I know you folks have some questions about Kerry's craft or process or one of those poems in particular that you just loved. And if you want to ask that question, hold on to it because we're going to have the Q&A right after Akpa's reading. So go ahead and write it down. I'm gonna point my finger. I'm gonna say, "Do you have a question?" And you're gonna say, "Oh, I had one," but you have forgotten it because Akpa is also about to blow us away with some wonderful poetry. Um, Akpa Arinzechukwu is the 2023 Oxbelly Writing Retreat Fellow, a winner of the 2021 Poetry Archive Worldview Prize, a Best of the Net nominee, Pushcart and Geoffrey Dearmer Prize, shortlisted for the FT Bodley Head Prize, and a finalist for the 2020 Black Warrior Review Fiction Prize. His works appear in Kenyon Review, Adda, Transition, Black Warrior Review, Prairie Schooner, The Nation, Poetry Review, and elsewhere. He is the curator of Muqabalal, a bilingual conversation series, co-host of Muqabalal's Poem a Day in Translation, and the Church of Poetry. Akpa, whenever you are ready.
Thank you. Um, Thank you for showing up here and for hosting this. Um, Kerry, thank you so much for reading. I enjoyed your poems. I am reading Bathing Together. This is from a series of poems I've been writing for my dead friend. And I am hoping to reimagine our past and the future that's no longer possible together. Bathing together. Little things like bathing together fascinated you. I once had your nipples in my mouth, so much it felt like I found the answer to climate change. It was a favorite thing to do. Stay in the bath for so long, we forget about the heat wave. Anything could have happened in that moment, and it would be none of our business. Even the cherry blossoms, in full bloom, down the street catching fire would be like time passing through us. It was the first week of spring. How stupid I was to think our bodies were built to resist the decaying hands of passing time. My soapy hands on your back lower to your hips, and you moaned. This is how I like to think about you. Us, your hands latching onto me in the bath, your body pressing into mine, breathing hard and whispering inaudibly into my ears. Present as you were in the past, being vulnerable to each other. Thank you. The next one is waking up in November to your absence. After you died 2 weeks before your birthday, your family and I gathered to laugh at the absurdity of the joke you pulled on everyone. Whilst I was naked and by myself in the shower, your absence sponged the crevices of my body. I cannot tell you enough how much I was tickled and the laughter streamlining inside of me till I was flattened to the bathroom floor. It felt like a finger went through my anus and my chest tightened. The shower knob broke, ushering in sounds without indigo. My body was there in a boat refusing to row in your absence. My airtight room lost sight of you, the lavender of your scent, a distant memory. In the room where you breathed your last, your mom noted a similar experience. Across our different time zones, the world was the same, dipped into emptiness and rid of colors. The mortician appeared in black and white, refusing to play your violin. Instead, weighed you into a haze, coughing up colorless earth as he went. Outside my window in California, it was November, all over again, puddles form in the middle. Thank you. And the next one is Ramadan. I have seen now that satisfaction comes after one has given up on waiting. The sun is still the sun, rising to the muezzin's call for prayers. But I have not had sahur. I have not whispered my morning to you, and my shoes are heavy. I am experimenting with the correlation between hunger and gravity. Even my unwillingness to plant my toes with the Ummah. There should be something science agrees on with devotion. I do not know it yet, but I can tell you about the heaviness of the air as our feet besiege the masjid, the brazen resistance of my allergy, and the imam specifying Bismillah. I search for you now in this moment for all the words I cannot yet offer to my Lord. I want my text to mean something. I want the jokes about my forehead, your laughter piercing through dawn while making out my shape in the dark. I want to hear you in the shower, accusing me of being dense as water slitters across the floor with the sins of our flesh. It won't be the last. I want more, Ya Rabbi. Give me back the clarity of thought and the cadence of my day. Let the little things that matter to me be given life. In memoriam. I want to argue no one knows you better than I do. But the red earth that now embraces you thinks otherwise. It's unraveled you beyond the clothes you wore the last day of summer. You were all the memories that stopped being. I could not reach the inside of you to touch your tissues while urging you to remember us, even if death had more prospects than a man like me. But the red earth, it got to you first, sliding a hand into your shirt, lifting you with the other hand, forcing you to look into his eyes as it took from you what remained of us. It is difficult to infer which is worse than the other. Losing you or the thought of decay caressing you like I never did. I heard your bones creaking from the distance that now stood between us, and I thought that could be our bed, carrying us. The people around cheered with their tears, and my hands held the sun. Despite this, I accept that once might know your name, but none can say it like I do. This is Shock. It has a mixture of Nigerian Pidgin English. Shock. I for talk say life don't tire me. Everything I set my eyes on disappears, including you. I'd want to catch a momentary break from all of our misfortunes. Yesterday, I met your father. Can't tell him say hope na long thing where I no feel rich. He did not even flinch when he saw me smoking. I held the lighter to his face, forgot he was facing the Qibla. Astaghfirullah, you were not supposed to have ignored my text. Is there a law preventing the deaf from returning calls? I sat your father down before prayer, asked him what I must do to see back all the moments you were supposed to have had, which he stole by always monitoring you. Bet, your church members thought I was mad, but your father stopped them from doing anything, and they despised me in their silence. I smoked for all of our memories. I bumped into your father, grabbed his collar, and let heaven witness two men winning in their foolishness against gravity. Habib, I have stood under the sun Joshua had. There's nothing in that miracle for me. Where are you? And this is Denial. After everyone went home and I joined your mother in the kitchen, I sorted the dishes in the sink. While she let the water run through the smudges on the plates, inattentive to the gushing sound of water and how it scattered the dirt it came in contact with. We did not talk about how difficult it was for the pallbearers to circle the earth, almost as if our grief weighed heavier than the corpse. Even when it started drizzling and we worried lowering the coffin into the damp earth meant we finally succumbed to defeat and could not even preserve your honor in death. And your sisters, unable to bear it, serenaded your grave with their tears in a last attempt to petition heaven. Sure, they meant to say, God too could not be sadder than the bereaved. Your mom, who was quiet then as she was now in this kitchen, picked up the plates, one after another, and started scrubbing them with a wet sponge and a soap. Her tender hair scrubbing so hard, the water turned red. That was when she said your name for the first time, looked at her wound, smiled, and said, "This does not hurt at all." Okay, this is titled After. The doctor said he could not do anything, even if the bullet was retrieved. There was no guarantee the gun would feel better for what it had done. The pain was not yours alone to shoulder. Whatever came for you came for us all. Mornings in Nigeria, the sky was a horror already lived. So you were in the hospital dying. All the flowers I sent you ended up in the bin because you had developed an allergy to other living things. Twice I spun the globe, but the light never reached you. Twice your sister assured me darkness was also needed to unmask love. Twice I held the phone to my ears and heard nothing. Twice your sister read you my messages. Twice you were soundly asleep. Then came her voice, telling me to let it go. Listen, I wanted to say, silence is also a form of intimacy. Instead, I fixed coffee, drank from your favorite mug, sighed, okayed. Listen, I wanted to say as soon as I caught my head, give me what belongs to Caesar. I am tired of waiting for my miracle. And this is my last. End of the world blues. The year gave up on hope in November. That morning, instead of sunshine, a cloudy sky and a deserted town. Some trees, unlike others, resisted gravity. The air smelled like a hurricane was brewing. Our gadgets blowing up with weather alerts. When it started, the television showed the first casualty was a man in red Prado, driving his dog to a vet. The submerged car was only identified through a partially visible license plate number. Neighbors' testimonies were certain the man was alone with his dog in the car. For a moment, it felt like that was all the pain left in the world until more casualties turned to numbers. No neighbors to testify to seeing them. No car, no dog. That was when I texted you about my world ending, but yours had already ended. How many months had it been already since you were swept into a mound of earth? And not even I could tell your tombstone's exact location or the last meal you had. After the downpour, drizzling persisted. Ducklings claimed the streets, unaware of the direction of home. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Akpa, thank you so much. That is stunning and devastating, and so beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
We will now enter the Q&A portion of our event. I warned you. I warned you about 15 minutes or so ago that I would do this. Here's my little finger point that says, if you've got a question, now's the time to ask. Of course, myself and Gardner have questions prepared that we are thrilled to ask, but we do want to hear from you. So if you would like to raise your little hand up, either physically or using the little emote feature, you can ask yourself. You can also throw it in the chat and we will ask on your behalf if you're not really feeling like speaking. The first thing that we always like to ask every one of our readers, well, we like to ask a couple things, but the one that we'll start with right now is, generally speaking, what have y'all been obsessed with recently? This does not have to be poetry or literature related. We get a lot of stuff about birds and trees, but what has really been inspiring you, or what have you loved learning about recently? Maybe we'll start with Kerry and then go to Akpa.
Well, it was just the Tony Awards last week, and I was in New York City. I'm kind of like a musical theater nerd, so that's what I've been obsessing about lately. We saw some shows and we were there last week, and my husband and I sat with donuts and bourbon in our hotel room and watched the Tony broadcast, and we're kind of rooting for the shows that we liked and surprised at some of the shows we didn't like as much that were winning things. But so that's kind of what's been on my mind, and we're going back in August. I'm doing a poetry reading in New York August 12th. And so we're going to see some more shows. So I'm just back to planning what we're going to see then. So.
Well, I think for me, it's been a constant, and I obsess over music, classicals. So I like to hit my friends up and say, hey, have you listened to this recording? Or hey, because also I teach rhetoric of hip hop. Like I'm a hip hop head. So it's just like something I am always into. And yeah, but aside these, it will be the poetry of Donald Hall. Yeah. Especially the poems he wrote after Kenyon's death. So it was like, yeah, since I'm writing all of these poems, I'm like, okay, I could just go back to Donors for some inspiration.
Mhm.
And you just zipped ahead to our second question. What we'd like to ask is, what have y'all been reading recently? The last thing that you read that really wowed you, or that made you really want to sit down and write some of your own stuff?
Um, okay, I'll let Kerry go first.
Well, I normally read poetry. I don't read a lot of fiction, but I am in the middle of a novel because I was on an airplane that I always bring a novel for a plane because I would need to pack a bunch of poetry books, and that's too much for my luggage because I go through those faster. So I've been reading Disobedience by Jane Hamilton, which is a lovely novel. And then back home, the book that I have, well, I've got two books kind of standing open, but I have an anthology called Out Here We Say Missouri, which is all Missouri poets by, I think it's Spartan Press. Maybe Adrian will correct me in the chat if that's wrong. I think that's what it is. But it's excellent. I mean, a lot of them are poets that I know and some that I don't, and it's all beautiful work.
For me, the last thing I read before coming on Zoom right now would be I am Learning to Abandon the World by Linda Pastan, and I would want to read the excerpt for you. Um, I am learning to abandon the world before it can abandon me. Already, I have given up the moon and snow, closing my shades against the claims of white. And the world has taken my father, my friends. I have given up melodic lines of hills, moving to a flat, tuneless landscape. And every night I give my body up, limb by limb, walking upwards across bone, towards the heart. But morning comes with small reprieve of coffee and bird song. A tree outside the window, which was simply shadow, moments ago takes back its branches twig by leaf twig, and as I take my body back, the sun lays its warm muzzle on my lap as if to make amends. And it was so beautiful when I read it.
I love Linda Paston. That's so beautiful.
Oh, it's so good to hear.
I haven't heard that poem in so long, and I am so thankful that you read it just now. That is such an incredible poem. Thank you for your reading of it.
Thank
Um,
you.
we will now open up for questions from our audience. Although Gardner, would you like to ask your favorite question?
The signature question. Yeah, I love asking writers this question because everyone has a little bit of a different answer. But when you're composing a new poem or new piece, what do you prefer to do that in terms of medium? Do you like to write by hand, use your phone notes, Google Doc, Word Doc? What do you like to use? And do you think that informs the way that you write or that you draft? And that goes for both of you, but we can start again with Kerry.
Sure.
I normally just have a Word document that I open one up at the beginning of the year, and then I'm working within that Word doc for the year. All my poems are in there. But this month I've been doing Tupelo Press's 30 for 30. So we write a poem every day for 30 days. So every day in June, which means I've had to adapt. So for instance, I was out of town, so I'm typing in a notes app, which is super awkward. And I found I could get better formatting control if I opened up an email to myself and type it in there, because then I can do italics and things I can't do in the notes app. So I have these poems kind of all over the place on my iPad notes and in my iPhone notes and in emails to myself, and they're kind of all over the place, and it's making me a little bit insane. So I'm very excited for when the month is over to copy and paste all of those into my pretty little controlled Word document that I know how to manipulate so that I can work on those drafts and finish them up, with more control. But so yeah, all of this business has just reinforced my love for word. But that's what I know how to control.
That never heard that, but that's so organized.
I use Google Docs for all kinds of writing because it's easier for me. Like it's asynchronous. I could pick up my phone, or I could pick up my laptop, or I could work with any gadget that's available to me. I could be in the library and use the library's computer, and I could still be writing. So that's what I use, but also because I'm always listening to music, and sometimes I write to Tchaikovsky, and I write to Wagner, or I could be writing to Mozart and all that. So that's my approach.
I was just watching right before this Zoom, Amadeus, the movie about Mozart. I have just recently gotten into him. I don't know how it took me all these years, but this is a plug for Mozart, a little indie artist, if y'all have never heard of him.
Awesome.
All right, folks, the floor is yours. And if no one's got a question, I have plenty on hand, although I don't want to stifle your glory if you're ready and willing to ask away.
I could ask a question.
Okay.
Kurt Vonnegut, the novelist, when he wrote his books, he imagined his sister as his audience. Okay, so when he wrote, he was really writing for everybody, but he was speaking directly to this one person. I know who I am writing to when I'm writing. Who or do you imagine an audience, or if so, who would they be?
I'll go first. I do not. The only time I ever imagine an audience is if I'm writing something that's dirty, that I like worry about, like my mom someday finding it, or my mother-in-law or something. Like most recent book has is a novella, and it has some dirty stuff in it, and it was sitting on my mother-in-law's coffee table. She's like, I like your new book. And I'm like, you read that, Mom? I'm like, oh, there's some nasty stuff in there. But so that's the only time I think about an audience, is if I'm like nervous about it. But other than that, it's just whatever. No.
For me, I think it's a little bit different from Kerry's. I mean, whether it's dirty or not, I do not have to worry about anyone reading mine, because I come to some of my writing as a form of diary. Like even if I were working on a novel, or if I were working on my poetry project, I come to it as a diary. Okay, recently the only audience I've been imagining is like, I felt like these are little love poems or love letters I've been writing for my dead friend, and I'm imagining my dead friend to be the audience in this particular time, and which is the reason I've been using you in the poem to refer to my friend who definitely never read this particular thing, but by an extension to every other person who might be concerned. Thank you for asking that question.
Okay, I'm gonna throw another one out. And also, thank you for asking that, Adrian. That's a phenomenal question. I didn't know that about Kurt Vonnegut. That's beautiful and makes a lot of sense. I heard a poet, it might have been Cindy Zhu Young Oak, I don't remember, but talk about how the idea of, when you say like confessional poetry, it's got this kind of tinge to it that doesn't feel entirely accurate. Like all of the confessional poets, what are you confessing to? It's almost like incarceratory, that word, the idea of confession, when really it could be viewed as sincerity, or maybe put into more words, saying the quiet parts out loud. Hearing both of y'all's work today, you have so much that deals with personal story that's interlaid with different mythologies, or very directly in this kind of diary case, like Akpa, like you were talking about, speaking very directly into real life events, as far as the reader is concerned, as far as the listener is concerned. So I was curious if y'all had any thoughts on the way that you approach weaving in your own lives into the world of the page, whether you feel like you have a contract with the reader where you want to be as sincere and as out there as possible with how you feel, or whether you also pull back or change, kind of make your own mythologies in your poetry. That's a long question, but I hope something is translated there.
Mhm.
I'll go first again. I don't think I owe anybody anything as far as how much of myself I'm willing to reveal or how much truth there is. Ultimately, it's a poem. You know, what I'm creating is a poem. It's not a memoir. It's not an autobiography. So there are core things that are truths, but as far as being completely autobiographical or factually accurate, I don't take that into consideration when I'm writing. So if there's like a feeling I want to express, a thing I'm going through, I can find ways to work it out on the page that are storytelling and may appear to be a confession in the strict sense, but it isn't necessarily. There's, you know, it's kind of some more than others. So I do sometimes wonder if people read a book of mine and sort of maybe think that they know me in a personal way that maybe they don't ultimately, you know, because it's not all true. But then people who do know me, I think, can read them and know which bits. Yep, I know these are based on. I remember she told me about this, or the person that I'm, you know, my sister, somebody I'm referring to, they know that person, and so I don't know. I don't write in a way that I think of as a pure catharsis that I'm going to put, you know, slit my wrists on the page and just, you know, bleed for the drama that everyone can soak in. I mean, there's some, you know, melodrama in there, but does that answer the question? I think that kind of answers the question.
I have a thing against the confessional or the term confessional poetry, because then to whom am I confessing to? And for the confession to happen, there has to be a priest, or there has to be someone I have to prove to them that I am maybe innocent of something or something, but then like everything that goes into confessing something and all that. That reminds me of this interview Jamaica Kincaid had some time ago on Guernica, where she says something about like who gives a fuck about how many the inspiration I take from my life, or what the inspiration goes into my writing and all of those things. Like, it shouldn't matter that anyone should come to your work and read it for what it is, or give it the interpretation they get, and not be concerned about, is this authentic, is this true or not, and read it as something that is happening, maybe as a human condition. I mean, without me prefacing my poems, anyone could read it without like opening an inquiry into my private life to know like to whom is Akpa writing for, and then get the particular message.
Thank you both. I think those are really beautiful explorations into the idea. This came to top of mind. One of my students this past semester said to me, "I didn't know you could lie in poetry," and I already that's kind of a charged sentence. So it's like, well, you don't have to lie if you don't want to. Like, you can say anything. It's a poem, you know. But there's that idea of like, oh, I gotta tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, as though someone's glaring down over your shoulder, or that you're telling complete fantasy. You know, all the 18-year-olds love their binaries, and it's like, no, like it can be true, and then you can lie about it, or you can twist it. Who doesn't love a good little bit of autofiction? Um, Thank you both. Do we have another question before I launch into yet another question. All right, I'm doing it. I'm going back in. Okay, so this is for each of you. It's probably to answer differently, but I imagine there might be some same things talked about. Kerry, you talked about how you come back to fire a lot, and Akpa, I noticed during your reading you talk about water a lot. Um, and so that's where it kind of sparks to mind. If y'all could talk about your relationships to like Kerry, fire, and if you wanted to talk about water, you could do that, or in Akpa, vice versa. And then generally any other things that you find yourself always returning to. Like one of those, Hanifa Durakib calls this, I think, your gems, your prisms, the things that you're always shining in the light to see if they can reflect in different beautiful ways. Things that you always love to return to.
Yeah, the fires, there's a story. Everyone is a story. So there's a specific situation happening, and then this crazy drama happens, and then there's the after. So I'm drawn to that, to the narrative of all of those dramatic instances that happen in a flash and are terrifying. And I've ever since I was a child, afraid of fires, of house fires and things. I blame it on seeing The Towering Inferno, which is a terrible movie, but great as far as a fire movie. But I was like 11 when I saw that, and it freaked me out. So that's definitely one. But water is absolutely another one. I mean, growing up on the Lake Erie in the Great Lakes state, I'm always drawn to rivers and reservoirs and lakes. And when we travel, I seek out whatever water is there in the city that I'm in. And so that comes up very often as an obsession of mine. Probably people who read my work is like, all right, enough with the lakes and stuff. Nature in general, again, living in Ohio, we have extremes where this past couple of weeks it's been 95, and then the wind, so like that's going to kill you, and then in the winter it's the ice and snow that are going to kill you. So there's this sense of, in my work, of being powerless in the face of nature and natural forces, tornadoes and lightning storms and ice storms and things like that, that those come back over and over for sure.
For me, my relationship with water could be summed by this quote from A.R. Kaminsky's poem. You can fuck anyone, but with whom can you sit in water with? Yeah. I have an intimate relationship with water, and like it's a place I come when you feel defeated by life or everything going around you. Just come home, sit in the bathtub, turn on the shower knob, and then let it pour all over you. And you're tired or you're going through something and you have a lover near you, and like you could sit silently in water with them and all that. So it's like I have this associative intimacy with it, and like so I am kind of I'm obsessed with it. But for fire, I have these religious associations, and that's like maybe if I'm trading very careful or carefully because hell.
Thank you both so much. We have a question from Naomi. How do you feel, or actually, what do you feel immediately after having completed writing a poem?
It depends if it's one that I feel is successful. So sometimes I mean, the word completed sort of suggests that I'm done with it and it is what it is. But when I get just a first draft out, particularly of something I've been working over in my mind for a few days, and finally get a chance to kind of get it down, then I have a sense of relief, of finally getting the words down and not forgetting them, and capturing what I was trying to say. If it's something that is successful, that I really, am proud of and I'm happy with and feel like it's finished or fairly finished, then there's like an endorphin rush or a little dopamine burst or something that happens, that it's like, yeah, I did that. And that doesn't happen all the time, but there are those ones that are like, mic drop, like, yep, that one's a good one. But if it's one that I just get a draft out, but I know I'm going to have to come back, then it's going to kind of haunt me for a few days, knowing I need to get back to that and make it into what it deserves to be, because it's not there yet. So then it's like a lingering homework assignment that I need time to get back to it and finish.
I think I'll be twinning with Kerry at this moment. For me, I accept the feeling of ecstasy. I always like feel here comes another poem that will be taking the rest of my day or week trying to figure out how best to have said a particular thing, or how best to have, I mean, it brings us back to revision and all of that. Like as soon as I am done, I'm writing it in, the next thing that comes to my mind is like, have I actually said what needs to be said? And if the particular poem like fits into the form I would want it to, is it better as a couplet, or is it better as a poem broken down in another way? Maybe it could be pantoum and all of that. Like that's at the point I start like worrying, like what could be said better and all that. So like for me, I'm always thinking in terms of revision, how a poem could take me to this particular point. And like only when, even to the point of publication, when the poem is coming out, like if I still have the opportunity to write the edit, I'm like, can I change this particular thing? Just like what happened with the Nation poem and all of that. I'm like, oh, can I add one more thing to it? I'm like, oh, we've already done this. So that's how it feels like. Of course, it's always beautiful in that moment, completing something or having something almost completed, because of course you have something to look forward to, going back to, or nostalgic about.
Thank you both so much. We have time for one more question. This is your moment. If you've been sitting on a question and you're saying, "Oh, I hope I can ask my question," now is the time. Okay, it looks like I'm going to ask one of my new favorite questions. Charles Jensen, one of our readers from this past month, brought this to top of my mind, and I have just not been able to stop thinking about it. Kind of also something that goes into traditional pedagogy when you're teaching poetry. Something that comes up is the trinity between form, content, and occasion. And I feel like I now just have to ask everyone this, because it's I never thought about it this way before, but where do you all find that you start with when you're writing a poem? Where do you start in that little triangle, form, content, or occasion? And then when it comes to revision, where do you look at? And as an example of this, I'll say that I always find myself starting at form. And that typically doesn't change. When it comes to my revision point, then I'm always looking for content, and occasion kind of just manifests out of it. But it had not occurred to me that I never look to form like that for revision until Charles said it kind of offhandedly during that reading. So I'm curious if that brings anything to top of mind for you all.
Well, normally content is what will bring me to the page, because it's something specific that I need to say, or a line that comes to me that I want to explore. Form, I don't write in a lot of formal forms, traditional forms, except for like a prompt, an April writing prompt or something, then I might, and then I would start with that. But as far as the revision process, I do play with the form, loose forms, as a means of kind of exploring and deciding what shape I want the poem to take. I write a lot in little couplets. So sometimes I'll start things out in kind of a blocky prose, and then break the lines into these couplets and see if I like the way that enjambment kind of pulls the momentum through. Or, but the content is what I'm manipulating with form as being a revision tool mostly. Occasion, I do like to write things for specific purposes. And this week or this month, doing these Tupelo things, I've found myself kind of writing and like, here, I'm in New York, let's write a New York poem, or, you know, something like that, that's not the specific content, but more of the grounding nature of, you know, the poem kind of starts with the sort of sense of occasion. But that's less common. Content is the main thing for me.
I think it's the same for me. Or as Sandra has said, I start with content first and then it moves to form. As sometimes I already know, because I tend to be partial towards couplets. I tend to already figure out that, okay, maybe this poem I have this idea and I would want to try it out in couplets first or in any other form. But that's on rare occasions. But usually I have this idea. I know I want to write about the rain, for instance, and I just come there and write the first line. And then other times, of course, the poem could decide which way it would want to come out. But then it's not like something I actively think about until I start doing it, or I'm in the process.
Thank you both so much for your thoughtful questions and your craft and process. And thank you for sharing your exquisite work with us. This has been a lovely, lovely episode. And thank you all for following along on the Facebook live stream and for attending our sweet and cozy little Zoom room here. We have one final question for y'all, and that is, where can folks find you online or in paper? Kerry?
Luckily, I have a fairly unusual name. So if you Google my name, you'll find me. You'll find poems that are out there. You'll find links to my books on Twitter, X, and Instagram. I'm Ohio Kerry. So you can find me there. On Facebook, I'm Kerry Jensen Trautman. My maiden name is Jensen. So Kerry Jensen Trautman. And I had an Uncle Charles. So I love when I encounter Charles Jensen online. So I'm like, oh, I have a great Uncle Charles. I don't think he had that fabulous mustache that Charles usually has, at least in his author photos. But yeah, so that's me, Kerry Jensen Trautman.
Well, I think I'm still twinning here. I have a very unique name. So when you Google me, everything pops out. So just like I'm gonna pop out and show you. I have works in The Nation, Black Warrior Review. I have works out. Of course, I have works out in the Poetry Review and a couple of other places like Kenyon Review and Adda, the magazine of the Commonwealth writers, and yeah, and so many other places that I cannot just say off the top of my head.
No, perfect.
Yeah, when you start looking for me online.
Yeah. Looking around at both of y'all's work, I can say that both is very true. It is very easy to find Kerry's pages and Akpa. When you type in your full name, all of your publications do come up. So folks will definitely be able to follow you along online. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 171 of Poets in Pajamas. Please join us again for episode 172, featuring our very own, currently in the Zoom room, Dorinda Wegener and Mukuthe Kawinzi. It's going to be an absolutely wonderful night of a bunch of hybrid work, and we would love to have you. That'll be 7 p.m. EST on July 14. That is all for now, folks. Please stay comfy and cozy.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.